What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the Country Roads webcast here for another transfer portal update here. First one in a while. This is going to be our April 24th edition after West Virginia suffers, their first transfer departure here since spring football practice has begun. We've learned of E.J. Horton entering the transfer portal. He announced on social media. I'm going to share an article here from WVU Sports Now, in which he announced his transfer from West Virginia. Then we'll also talk about, though, WVU going out and targeting players that are currently in the portal. They've offered some of those. We'll talk about some of those guys and some of the positions that they're targeting here. But first, let's talk about E.J. Horton, and then we'll pull up our transfer portal list here on the CRWR transfer portal tracker. We'll update our transfers out, our transfers in, and we'll take a look at those targets that West Virginia is going after in the portal here as they look to make some additions post-spring before they get into things, in the summer and the fall and get set for this 2024 season. Now, like I said, this is coming from WVSportsNow.com. Mike Asti with this article. E.J. Horton to leave West Virginia, enter the transfer portal, and there you see he put it on social media. Officially in the portal, grad transfer, can play all special teams, shared some of his highlights, some of his miles per hour there. We know great speed for E.J. Horton was kind of used as a deep threat last season, recorded 186 receiving yards on 12 catches in 12 games for Marshall, and then last year for the Mountaineers, kind of similar to statistics, as he caught 10 balls for 201 yards and scored a touchdown. And, I think West Virginia added E.J. Horton because it was a time when they really needed to make sure that they ensured they had some speed to take off the top of defenses. They knew that they had some speed on the roster, but I think that they were worried about those guys being young, didn't know how much they would be able to contribute when you're talking about a guy like a Traylon Ray and a Hudson Clement. Ended up being that they were a little bit of ahead of schedule, but, E.J. Horton was there as kind of an insurance policy, and they needed to have a speedy guy on this roster that they felt like they could rely on, that had some experience in college football, so they went out and got him last season. But then you turn the, page to this year, and you look at the roster. Traylon Ray's proven, Hudson Clement's proven, Rodney Gallagher's well on his way. You brought in Jaden Bray from Oklahoma State. So there's a solid starting 4 wide receivers there. And then if you're looking, kind of his niche, like I said, was speed. But West Virginia has that in not only a couple of guys that I mentioned there, Traylon Ray and Hudson Clement, but you talk about a guy that's coming in, going to be here this summer and here for fall camp, and Day Farmer, a very highly regarded receiver recruit that West Virginia was able to steal away from UCF. So maybe, seeing the writing on the wall a little bit, his role may have diminished more this season, but hopefully E.J. Horton can find someone that can use his speed there at the wide receiver position. But let's take a look now at our transfer portal tracker here on the CRW. We'll add E.J. Horton's name to our transfer out list, and we'll take a look at some of those targets that West Virginia is going after here as far as players that are in the portal is concerned. All right, so if you've been following along previous transfer portal updates here on the Country Roads webcast, been trying to track this throughout the offseason, transfers out, transfers in, West Virginia have been doing a great job kind of managing the transfers out, really haven't lost a ton of, big name starters or anything like that. And, E.J. Horton kind of follows suit in with that, more of a role player leaving the Mountaineers. And it's not necessarily a position of need. West Virginia has a ton of good wide receivers, especially ones that are younger. And they brought in the veteran, as I mentioned, Jaden Bray, to help replace him. He's here this spring, as you see him on the transfers in list. If you don't know, all of these players here on the transfer in list are in Morgantown playing for WVU here in the spring. You can see most of them in the spring game, save for probably TJ Crandall. I believe he's out with an injury. Everyone else you'll probably get to see in action if you're getting to check out the West Virginia spring game in person or on TV. But, more importantly, we've added E.J. Horton to the transfer out list. You already know the transfers in. Let's talk transfer targets, because this is something that we're going to be looking at more extensively here as spring ball gets close to wrapping up now after this week, and West Virginia will be, having probably a couple more departures. Let's face it, we know West Virginia is over the scholarship limit, but they'll also be adding some pieces. We know they've had some injuries. I talked a little bit about TJ Crandall. Jacoby Spells also, suffered an injury, so they're probably going after a defensive back. On the defensive line, Corey McIntyre, a guy that they really thought could help their depth, also suffered an injury, and since then we've seen West Virginia offer some defensive linemen. So let's talk a little bit about some of these players West Virginia's after. These are currently the scholarships that they've offered to players in the transfer portal. Justin Wolf, you may remember on a previous update I did, I believe on a live stream here, he had West Virginia's top 6, but unfortunately he actually committed to Kansas State. I believe yesterday was when that happened, so we can remove him off the target list. But thus far, this is who West Virginia has offered that's still in play. This list will get a lot longer. West Virginia will send out more offers. Next transfer portal update I do here, you may see more names on this list. But for now, Xavier Lazawicki, an offensive lineman from Maine, West Virginia has offered him a scholarship as a transfer to come in and try and help the program. West Virginia trying to add depth to the offensive line there. We thought they may try and add one more piece there. Defensive line, as I mentioned, Corey McIntyre, after his injury, we knew West Virginia would try and probably add some pieces there. Brandon Lane from Stephen F. Austin, I believe he has either been on campus or is coming, very soon, maybe this weekend, to visit WVU, but he's one that's coming on a visit, so that's, good news for West Virginia if they get him on campus, but I believe he's, got some other visits scheduled as well. They've also offered Diamante Diggs from Youngstown State. You see they've offered a couple Youngstown State players. If you look at the linebackers now, Alex Howard, also from Youngstown State, was given a West Virginia offer, and then Brenton Williams from Auburn, I think, is a good offer for West Virginia. An SEC player, obviously. You get the, Power 5 or his Power 4 now recognition with, the school that he'd be coming from. But I think he'd be a good fit, almost like a Bandit. He kind of is like an edge guy there. But, so listen to him under the linebackers, because that's kind of where the Bandits factor in here as far as I'm doing, with these transfer target lists. So Brenton Williams of Auburn and Alex Howard from Youngstown State. And then Deani Hill from Marshall. Another guy that I believe is scheduled to visit WVU if he hasn't already. And I mentioned, West Virginia likely going to target another defensive back. If Hill, is the one that they're after and they have, get him on a visit and you get a commit from him, then that may be just, solidify up the defensive back room. And I know that sounds crazy. West Virginia brought in all these transfers, right? We go back up to the transfer in list here. You see the defensive backs. We know that Montre Miller's back, but, I also mentioned Jacoby Spells dealing with an injury. It seems like it might be prolonged going into the fall at least. TJ Crandall just kind of dealing with a nagging hamstring injury. So, you might need another body. So that's why West Virginia is targeting another defensive back, despite the fact that they have a ton of guys, providing good competition there. Garnett Hall is going to be a solid starter. Aiden Garn's been standing out throughout the spring as well. But Deani Hill from Marshall is another defensive back they've targeted. He's supposed to be visiting. If things don't work out there, you may see another offer go out to a defensive back. But this is where we are so far. Transfer portal targets. Wanted to just provide that update here, with EJ Horton's departure. Felt it was a good time to update the targets as well. And we'll continue to update this throughout the offseason. Like I said, these will be coming more frequently now with spring ball getting ready to wrap up here for WVU following this week. But that will pretty much do it here for our April 24th transfer portal update on the Country Roads webcast. Appreciate you tuning in to this one. If you did that, hit the thumbs up button. Really helps a ton with the YouTube algorithm. Really appreciate that. Just like I appreciate you if you subscribe here. And if you're a WVU fan, you definitely should. We're covering Mountaineer football and basketball here on the channel. Going to be covering these transfer portal additions, all kinds of roster movement in both sports as well, covering the coaching staff build up, the roster build up on the basketball side also. So if you're a fan of the Mountaineers, be sure to subscribe here, get you some extra WVU sports news, and be sure to throw your thoughts in the comments. Any transfer players you feel like West Virginia should go after? How are you feeling about that they've managed the transfer portal throughout this offseason thus far? I think it's probably the best job they've done since this staff has come in, but that's just my opinion. Would love to hear yours. Throw it there in the comments. Always appreciate those interactions here on the CRW as well. Having said that, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.